Hey, everybody. Sorry about that. Thanks for sticking with us. Hey, Mel. Good to see you. Now, Ross was on earlier, but I don't know what happened to him. So is he back or?
MIA. Let me check Slack real quick. Too bad we don't have xAPI on that. We can know what's going on.
Let's see. I'm looking.
I know he had a meeting, so like that could be, he could possibly be late.
All right. Well, we can get started, and then when he jumps in, we can add him. Not a big deal. But let me just tell everybody, thank you so much for sticking with us. Craig Wiggins, that was a fantastic intro to xAPI. Thank you so much for doing that. Today we have, for those of you that might just be joining us, probably not many, but this is the xAPI playlist, and we are talking all about xAPI for the next 3 hours now. Man, time's just flying by. And we have the wonderful Melissa Milloway with us today. How are you?
Good. I do feel like a little under the weather, so if I'm not my usual like super like energetic self, that's why.
Oh no.
Yeah, but I'm so super happy to be here and excited to share our progress on our project that we're working on.
It's great. I've been watching your progress on that, and I love it. I was super excited and happy that you agreed to share your progress with us, you and Ross both. So just so everybody knows, when Ross gets here, we'll bring him in on the video. But maybe we can just start, Mel, with you just sort of setting the stage for us about, your connection with xAPI and why you've launched this project.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my second xAPI cohort, and I'm very excited about it. So I don't know, has everyone been given a rundown on that? I missed.
I haven't talked about the cohort yet. Now, so maybe give a little bit of a pitch for that too.
Yeah. So my project is created from the xAPI cohort, and the xAPI cohort. Basically, it's a free program that's started by Torrance Learning, where you meet weekly for different presentations on xAPI and learning about xAPI. And then you also, outside of that time, are on this Slack program, and there's different channels, and you form teams, and you can like either lurk on a team or lurk on multiple teams, or you can actually join a team and build something, or investigate something, or really do whatever you want to do. And so for me, what's really great about that is it sets the time for me to actually work on projects, because it kind of holds me accountable to like these deadlines that we have for like sharing and doing different things. So that's like, that's why I love it. Oh, and Megan's here. I see.
Yeah.
She's got the links and everything. Yeah, but I love it because it just really gives me that time, and it also allows me to ask questions, because there's so many people on there that are so knowledgeable and doing crazy things with xAPI. So yeah, so that's
things.
Huh?
Crazy good things.
Crazy good things. Crazy awesome things. Yeah. So this is my second one. My first one I did a virtual reality project for. And then this one is a little bit more practical, like something I could actually use at work, because I don't really have a use for virtual reality. So this one is a micro learning that Ross and I are working on right now. So we're probably, I would say about, I don't even know, probably like 70% done. It's just really making the xAPI work now is where we're at in the process of things.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, let me just echo that as well, that what Megan has put together, the cohort with the xAPI cohort, it is a fantastic way to work out loud. And to, for all of us, we all struggle with the time management. We've all got other competing priorities, but when you do a program and commit to a team and commit to a small project and know that it's going to end, and you can actually work and engage with other people and really define it as part of what you're going to do during that time frame, it makes going through the process of learning so much easier, because you're doing it with a group too, and so many other reasons. So it's great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you mind, am I able to screen share? I have the extension.
Absolutely.
Because I would love to show, I can briefly show my project from the last cohort, because I know probably a few people haven't seen that.
Oh yeah, that's right there, sure.
And then share like the one that we're working on now. So cool. Yay. Thank you. Can you see?
Oh, yep. There we go.
Yay. So I'm going to show you guys my project from the last cohort. Brent, please feel free to let me know if people are having questions in chat. So this is the one that I did that was on virtual reality. So I did this mock-up of what I wanted it to look like. So it's a website that has these different locations in it. And I did mobile as well. And then after I did the mock-up and I took the pictures for the 360 virtual reality tours, I created this website. So what I'm going to show you guys, pick a place. Where do you guys want to go? Pike Place, Starbucks, Waterfront. Just yell it out in chat and let me know which is most popular.
Like we got 2 waterfronts, 2 Starbucks, a Pike Place, a hello. Let's go Waterfront.
Waterfront? Okay, cool. So I got a Ryko camera for this. And so that's like a really cheap 360 camera that you can take pictures and they go automatically to your Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want them to go to.
That's the little stick, right? The little stick with the little camera on top. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So for me to send my statements or to authenticate to the learning record store that I have people enter their email address, or they can skip and it will generate a random email address to help authenticate to the system. So when I click submit, and so I'm using Yet Analytics Learning Record Store here, you'll be able to see that, oh, someone else was in here today too, huh? Melissa Milloway experienced what it's like in the waterfront on Monday, March 19th, 2018. So that's this is really when you hit into the virtual reality experience, you can see the statement coming in. And if I'm seeing one of these facts here, you can also see the statements coming in. So you can say, I viewed fact 1 in waterfront on Monday, March 19th, blah, blah, blah. And I can also add tons of other information in here if I have more information, but I just really captured pretty basic information for that.
That's great though, but that's a perfect example of what an xAPI statement is, right? You had the noun, the verb, and the action, right? All lined up and showing how it gets sent into that system, right?
Yeah, so I have the agent inbox here, which is my email address, the verb, which is viewed. So the verb here is past tense because everything's past tense once you've already done it. And then the definition name, which is, it could really be anything. I just put fact 1 because it's the first one and I know what that means. So it's important to work with your team to be able to identify what your definitions and your verbs and everything are going to be. So no one else knows what the heck fact 1 means except for me. Okay. And then the definition description. I'm not going to go on about best practices with this because I don't think, honestly, I write the best statements. I'm just kind of more on the technical side of things for right now and working with some people on the business-ish, more logical side of this stuff. So in the waterfront, I always just put where it is so I know what it is, and then I keep it consistent depending on where the experience is. And it's
so let me clarify for folks, and this helps us to extend on that conversation that we started with Craig, right? xAPI can be anything that you create, right? The LRS is basically a dumb database that will accept any statement you put into it. And you're saying, and you're echoing that exact statement that you're able to write whatever xAPI, verbs or actions or nouns that you want to, as long as you know what they mean, you're able to make some meaningful analytical decisions on the back end at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a list of verbs that are the verbs that are used in the xAPI wrapper, for instance, which kind of makes everything work. And if my team wanted to add more verbs to it, we could, but we would want to, decide, is this something that the entire company is going to go with? Is it something our team is going to go with, these new verbs that we add? What does it mean to us? When do we use them? You want to come up with really a plan around everything. We're going to use the verb experienced, and to us, this is what it means, and we'll use it in these instances. So it's really, there should be some planning around those things, or else you get one team, if you're in a big company, you get one team using experience for this, you get one team using experience for this. Everything's it's just different. So
yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's getting started, right? It's it's like HTML was when it was 1.0, right? There really weren't that many HTML statements. Now we're at HTML5 and there's a bajillion different kinds of statements and tags and everything that you can do within it. So, you know what? Yeah, it'll grow and we'll get there.
Yeah. And for this project, honestly, this is just a fun project for me. I really wanted to try virtual reality out. So I used this thing called A-Frame.
I was just going to say, what was the name of that tool again? I know everybody loves hearing about it.
Yeah, and talk to Andrew Hughes from Designing Digitally. I think he's going to be on later this week, and he used it for his office tour. So he has a really good case study for it. But it's a very simple HTML framework for building virtual reality experiences. Like you can build like super interactive experiences. You can build like just images, like 360 images, like what I did. Here's one that's like kind of crazy game. Yeah, but they have got all these examples here and they've got the code for it. So you can go and view the source code and see how they built it and actually duplicate it and edit it and change it. So it's really easy to use, and declarative HTML is, it's like the easiest form of HTML possible. Like it's just like really simply written. So anyone can do it, and they use it for teaching kids how to code.
Yeah. Hey, before I get to this other question real quick, I just wanted to say hello, Ross. How's it going?
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you.
Yeah. So Melissa was just kind of getting us started with her old project before we get on to the new project. And there is a question that just got dropped into the Q&A, so I'm going to ask real quick. They want to know, is there an xAPI language book? Is it restrictive like Java?
xAPI. Well, I'm not the person to be asking that. Probably, I would say ask like a Megan Torrance or Craig or someone. But for me, like xAPI language. It's not really a language. It's basically you're just passing specific data into JSON in like a very specific way. Like that's the best way to say it. And like you can do it with like other languages. You just convert them into being able to be put into the JSON. And it's just like there's certain things that have to be filled in certain ways. Like you have to have like your activity ID. You have to have like your mbox. Like there's certain things you have to have, and then there's certain things you can add, and then you can create other things like extensions. So I don't know. Is that even a good answer? I'm not even sure.
Well, I think that's good. And the verbs themselves are based around the community. There's a database of verbs, but you can use ones that are not in the database. I do recommend going to the existing database of verbs that's up there and searching for one that's available that's already commonly used. So that way data can be more easily be shared amongst organizations. But it is pretty open in that way. We'll see how long that lasts into the future as xAPI grows and changes. But as of now, for example, on our project with video, some of the research that I did was, is the verb watched appropriate for video? Because if you have someone playing a video, they're not necessarily they could be looking away from the screen. So I checked into one of the community of knowledge groups talking about video and xAPI, and they said they advised against using that. They suggested using something like played to describe that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So these are all interesting sort of philosophical questions, if you will, that I think the community and the ADL folks and they're all working through and trying to figure out. And, it's good for everybody to understand and to know that this is the kind of stuff that's going on, because it is so new and helps everybody get through that. But let's jump in and check out your new project.
Yeah, so I'll preface it and kind of hand it over to Ross. So for our new project, it kind of began because I was like, oh, the new xAPI cohort's coming up, and I want to do something that's like more applicable to like stuff people are actually working on. Not that people aren't actually working on virtual reality, but like it's it's like a little like less common, I feel like. So I was like, I want to use storyline, I want to use video. I really want to talk a little to micro learning because I haven't done too much with that on a personal basis, like personally professionally. So I had started on this project, and Ross was like, hey, do you have a group? And I was like, yeah. I was like, sure, come join me, I guess. And he like hopped on board, and I knew he was like super interested in like game type stuff and game mechanics. So it was like kind of like a perfect match for this project. So what we wanted to create was this micro trivia, and we didn't really have a topic at first, and we wanted to create something that was kind of like HQ trivia, if anyone's ever played that. So kind of like the similar look and feel. And so so that's basically like where this whole idea comes from. And eventually we landed on doing it around Scrum. So the whole thing is, this micro trivia is like one little piece of a curriculum that we would be creating. And there would be several versions of it. And this is just our first one. So I'll let Ross interject so he can add a little bit more, and then we can go over the rest of the project, ask questions or answer.
So do you want Ross to share his screen, or do you want to drive the screen, Mel, while he talks about it, or how do you guys want to set this up functionally?
It's up to Ross, whatever he wants.
Mel, if you want to drive while I talk for a few minutes, just to kind of give a little introduction, I like that idea. And then later on, I can share some of the. I'd love to see, Mel, what the visually stuff that you've been doing, and then we can share some of the back end of what I've been doing on that side as well. But yeah, one of the things that we talked about when we first started, I shared a video about Scrum, and one of Mel's thought was that video doesn't really.
It's boring.
It's boring. And I'm like, I agree. It is boring. So we decided to go in a fun direction and create something that had a unique look and feel, something that it kind of exists in its own world that really creates a sense of fun and enjoyment. Because in HQ Trivia, one of the things that makes that game so fun is that when you click it, when you touch it, and you interact with it, it feels good. And one of the advantages of Experience API is that we can kind of capture how people interact with it. So to create something that people want to interact with was the first step. And then after that, we'll gather the data about that. But we wanted to be kind of branded and have a fun design of its own.
Yeah, so what you're seeing right now, because I didn't tell anyone what you're seeing right now.
I was just going to ask.
What are we seeing?
And this is about what Ross was talking about. So we each had like our own specific tasks in this project. So what you're seeing right now is Adobe XD. So what Adobe XD is it's for creating mockups and prototypes really quickly. It's specifically for that. So I got started based on the information that we had on these storyboards that are kind of like, well, rather they're like mock-ups for what our actual trivia will look like. And it just streamlines the whole process for you, really, because like, say I want to grab this picture to put into Storyline, all I have to do is right click on it and say export selected. And I can export it to a PNG, SVG, whatever I want to export it to in different things. So it just makes the process of designing a lot faster. And you can do different things in here that just make it a lot faster. So the first step for us was to come up with like, okay, what is this going to look like? And then even the screens here, we have like pop-up screens, like what are those things going to look like? And how are people going to interact with it before we actually get into development? And then we have a style guide that has all of our colors. Actually, we changed the font sizes because it didn't really work too well in Storyline. And we have the line thickness and button states and different things like that, just to help us to better streamline the process. And then that also allowed us to figure out what we wanted to track with xAPI.
Yeah, I think when we were first starting out, we were really starting out with what are the main things we want to communicate, and what are the things with the UI and with the design itself. So one of the things that we did is for the overall plot to make it more interesting. Well, we wanted to create something that had video in it because we were interested in xAPI video verbs. And so we started thinking about how we want to plot the video. We don't just want Scrum. Here's what Scrum is. It's very dry and very detailed. So we created a plot to describe that. And I created 3 scenarios, one of which was at a person at a game company doing Scrum, person at a Washington Post type of media company, and the third one is at a SpaceX type of company. We put it out to the cohort and said, okay, which one do you like? So they decided on the space themed plot, which kind of informed some of our design as we went forward.
And here's the storyboard for that here. So
this is fun.
We're using this tool called Boards. It's amazing for storyboarding. It's cloud-based though, so if you can't use cloud software, that kind of stinks. But for our personal project, we're using this, and they let you put in like, what's the action going to be? What's the sound going to be? Like, what's the title? So before I got into the video, I went and storyboarded everything because it was very complex, and we had like 1 minute and 45 seconds and a video that we needed to do. And so I found that out because I took the script and I put it into Amazon Poly, and Amazon Poly allows you to paste a script in, and then it reads the whole entire script for you, and it downloads as an MP3. So then I was able to kind of figure out, okay, like how am I going to do this like storyboarding stuff and do the video? So that was a complex thing to be working on. I have the video here too that we can show at some point. But we're really planning on trying to track people's interaction with the video, and then their interaction with the micro trivia, and then replays and different things like that, and see if we can find out anything from xAPI about the user experience, and then also about those statements that they get in comparison to the overall curriculum, and then what they're actually doing like on the job.
Yeah, for example, some of the video xAPI verbs that we're going to use, played, paused, skipped, and resumed. We decided on that set. I think it's really important to early on decide in your project what areas you're going to focus on for xAPI and what kind of data do you want to collect. Because the kind of data you collect should be tied to, I think, what it is that you want to learn, and what kind of changes might you want to make in the future to your course. And if this were part of a larger course, collection of courses, how would the data from this course inform the development of other courses in that curriculum?
Yeah, and like for instance, when Ross was just talking about the skip thing, something that we're going to look at here is, so if the person doesn't play the video and they go to skip and they skip it, does that actually affect how they're answering the questions, or does that affect? Yeah, so we want to gather information about that. So like, are people who watch the video to the end, or at least have it playing to the end, answer the questions better than people who skip it? And then we also want to see data around, are there drivers for certain things? So Ross is really into the game mechanics piece. So what were we doing? We were doing like an extra question at the end. What were you calling it? Lightning?
Yeah, it was the lightning round at the end. If they get all 3 questions correct, then there was a lightning round.
Yeah, so if they get all 3 correct, there's a lightning round. So we want to see if people don't get all 3 correct, are they more apt to replay it? Or if they do the lightning round, are they more apt not to replay it because they've already gotten all the points that they can possibly get? So we're just kind of looking, well, not all the points, because I think we were going to make it random, weren't we?
So
yeah, I believe so.
You guys are building this in Storyline?
Yeah, we're building it in Storyline. Ross has like, I don't know if he is able to screen share, but we've got a lot of things in here that are a little complex that we're doing. So we're going to be pulling in scores, or not scores, but how other people voted. So on this one, if 50 people answered A, it's going to pull in from the LRS how many people answered each of these. We just want to play around with, making it feel more social, more of a social experience versus like, okay, like I'm the only one playing this.
Right.
And then we also are playing with like, let me see, where's the leaderboard? I like just moved everything, so now I can't find it.
So do you have any of the code written into Storyline yet, and any of the framework at all, or are we still at the storyboard phase?
So we're in development right now. So the way that we decided to work, because this has been my experience with xAPI so far, is get everything built and do it last. But when you're designing things, like come up with like how that code is going to work in with everything. So for instance, for like some of those buttons that I showed that have the lines filling up, like we're being really cognizant of like how many states do we have to have. So in Storyline, there's a thing called states where like you have one object but can have different, depending on like what's happening in it, has different look and feel. So we're planning for all of that with the xAPI because we know we're going to get the data back in and the states are going to be different depending on the numbers. So like it's about planning, and then the xAPI piece is coming last. Like we're planning for it all along, but we're not adding it in until everything's developed because I don't want to break anything. And like it's not like I would break anything, but I like just doing it last has been my best experience.
No, I mean it's a great methodology for all of us to pay attention to, I think. And the idea of, and we've talked about this before, of needing to design everything out first, right? Don't jump right into the code. Don't jump right into the tool. Think everything through first, and then once you've got it all kind of drawn out or sketched out, or in a flip book, or whatever you want to do to make it paper based, make sure that's rock solid, and then go and start doing all the expensive work, which is the coding and the media production and actually creating all the stuff and making that happen. So it's actually fun to see that being put into action.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things too. I think we have like a lot of lessons learned, and we've also asked for feedback. So like one of the first things, like, because we've been asking for continuous feedback from like different communities within like the ID realm, and like one of them was on the people. And like everyone had like a different opinion on what color the people should be and like what they should look like and all this stuff. And like eventually like I just like asked enough people, and then everyone was like, you should make them like emoji. Like the yellow emoji. So like we went with that because I wanted to make it feel diverse, but like, you know what I mean? Like I wanted it to people to identify with it no matter what. And it's kind of like a fun feel, I feel like. So we kind of created this whole like purple and yellow universe, and it's fun. Yeah. And then video too. I don't know. I would love, Ross, it would be awesome if you could show your emoji thing down here. Are you able to share?
Yes. Let's see.
Yeah. So if you guys have any code at all, even if it's from your old project, that might be kind of cool too to share. And you guys are pulling that stuff up and dealing with the sharing. Let me just answer Craig's comment here, because this is extremely common. I struggle with the same issue, Craig, so you're not alone. He says, the problem for me is I cannot design well if I don't know the constraints in the code and the functionality. So there's this for people that are new in certain tools or certain new technologies, and I think we all kind of struggle with this. Is it's like sort of you're stuck with a catch-22, right? You want to design something, but you don't really know what you're designing because you're not really too sure what the capabilities are. You don't want to just jump right into the tool and start creating something, because then you may have to go back and change it. And so you were wishing you would have designed it, but I think I personally, and I'll let you guys add to this if you want. I like to jump in that learning phase. I like to jump into the tool first and just start hacking around and seeing other people's projects, opening up other people's projects, messing with it, changing it around, and yes, actually jumping into the tool first. Once you learn the tool and know those, at least the basic features that you want to know how to do, and that you know that it's capable of doing it, then when you actually have a real project, or you want to go back and design the project that you want, then you can go do that design phase first. But I think from a learning perspective, it's different in that you do have to jump right into the code and just to understand it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and that's what I did the first time. But so it's different for me because I've been using xAPI for about a year now, and so it's like vastly different. So for me, like I'm in the part of like, okay, like I already know what I'm doing, and it's about just like learning new things and tweaking things as I go. So, but when I first started, it was just about how can I even do this? Like, how do I just do it? So there was no design. It was just like, can I do it? Like that's kind of where I was at. But like, where we're at in the project is I know how to do everything already. So it's just like we're doing it like in a more formal process of like, this is what it would actually look like if I was like on a work project or something like that. Like this would be my process, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is very cool. So it's very small for me, but I'm hoping everybody can kind of see what we're looking at here. And even if you're not a code geek, I wanted them to show this, because if you ever get into the space, or if you ever start talking to somebody that's doing the coding for you, to have a little bit of familiarity with what you're getting yourself into, I think is a good idea. So kind of walk us through, like, where does the xAPI statement fit into coding structure like this?
Yeah, and I really want to preface this with, this is like a lot more code than you're ever going to use when it comes to xAPI and like Storyline, because this is my A-frame code. So this is for that virtual reality experience that I showed. So there's extra JavaScript in this that makes like the eyeballs, like when you click on them, like it pop out and do different things. So this is like more than you're going to be used to. Like the only thing that I'll show you really quick that you would use in something like Storyline is this piece of code here. So this is the actual function that makes the statement go through. So this one is, what am I in? I'm in Waterfront. So this was the one where we viewed fact 1 in the Waterfront. So it says if you visited this fact, so if you clicked on it, so here it is right here. If you click on that, then have this fire off. So it says when that person clicks on this, have this xAPI statement send to the LRS. So some of the stuff that you weren't seeing in that was, we have this ID right here. And so each statement has to have an ID like this that is unique to itself. So you'll see this one here is Waterfront 1, and this one is 2. So if I had sent them both as 1, it would kind of mess some stuff up in the LRS for me. But basically, that's just what's happening. I have some JavaScript that says right here, when the person clicks on that eyeball, send this to the LRS. And I have some stuff in this document that is making it happen. The one thing that I did wrong, not wrong, but like nothing's really wrong, it's just not the best way. I didn't use the xAPI wrapper or anything like that. So this is kind of like a condensed version of that, where everything is in one. So it's a little bit different than I actually do stuff. So now, so you can see here, this is the function for the actual xAPI statement. So where it says xAPI statement here, and then it says it here, it says when this goes off, make this happen. So it's filling in, viewed gets filled in, where the verb is, the activity ID gets filled in here, the facts 3, which is the short description, gets filled in here, and then after that in Waterfront gets filled in here. So basically it's saying when that person clicks on fire this off, all this gets filled in, and then it sends to the LRS. So there's also some information in this document about how I could connect to the LRS as well. So it's already connected, and then it's just saying, okay, send it over. And then every time an event happens, send it over. So like, that's basically what this is doing.
Yeah, and Craig's answering asking where do we drop that code into? And I would say it's definitely whatever you're coding in, right? It's going to, obviously every coding language has a different syntax. So if you're trying to track something that's in HTML5, you might drop it into some JavaScript that's on an HTML5 page on the web. If you're tracking something within Storyline like this is Storyline's, do they call it a scripting language, or do they just use JavaScript?
So here's the thing. Storyline is a web page. Like if you think about it, it's exactly the same thing, but instead you're using a WYSIWYG, like what you see is what you get type of interface. So when you in Storyline, where you're going to put this is going to be in execute JavaScript on a specific trigger. So execute JavaScript when timeline starts, execute JavaScript when so-and-so clicks whatever, when you click on something. So it's going to be on any kind of trigger, and you're not going to have all the rest of this stuff. So then you're going to publish, and then afterwards you have to do some compiling of files to like, not compiling, but putting together some files and attaching them so they talk to each other to make things work. I can do a live demo at some point if someone wants to see it. I can do it in about probably like 10 to 15 minutes. I'm really, really quick at it because I'm so used to doing it all the time. And basically, yeah, so this is JSON this is going to be the JSON that sends to the LRS because it has to be in JSON format. So you can write in JavaScript and then the JavaScript puts it into JSON. All you have to do is figure out how to get it into JSON to send to the LRS, basically, is the whole thing.
Yep. Ross, are you have anything to add to that?
My expertise primarily is within the design aspect and the game design aspect. So I've been sort of learning a lot during this process from Mel and from the collaborative process. So I'm going to let Mel take the lead on the technical side here.
I didn't want to make you feel left out or anything. So.
I appreciate that. Technical bit yet. So when we get to the technical bit, Ross and I will be working closely together to talk through things, what we want to do, because something else that we're doing that's very unique to our project, and not that I've done on this one, is we're pulling so much data back in from the LRS. So that's going to be the part where I'm going to do a lot of learning around things like that. It's going to be a little bit more complex. But it's cool because it also opens you up to being able to create more personalized learning experiences. So you can say someone did something on an older project and then tailor the new project based on what they did to what they did in the past. Kind of like Duolingo, where like, say you take one module and you get a word wrong and then it shows up in a later one. So it like allows you to do stuff like that, which is pretty awesome. Like adaptive learning.
Yeah, that's very, very cool stuff, right? And or if you don't go back into the app after 6 months, you go back into it and it starts you over, or at least takes you back and says, hey, you might need to review since it's been so long. That's good stuff.
For sure, for sure.
I'm really interested in which parts of the game do people interact with and which do not. For example, the feedback stuff that we were talking about, the emojis. If people, we can tell if people use that or not. So in the future designs, we can decide what to include or not again. And some things we as designers think that people will click on or think that they'll do. It doesn't always, that's not science, right? That's not how user testing works. This is like extended user testing, so. Show
the emojis. I'm so excited. Like, these are my favorite things.
Yeah, do that. While you're bringing that up, I'll add to that point too, that I think that is, in my mind, from a designer's perspective, the idea of, yes, xAPI can do a lot of great tracking of the user and all that kind of stuff, but I always feel like the really cool part about having all of that data is not so that we can, in a very spooky way, track people and see what they're doing, but for us to know what design elements are working and which ones aren't, and what are the most popular bits of content and how people are going through. I don't really care who, I just want to know that collective bunch of data, and then being able to create experiences based on how I see people reacting to past experiences. Once you start collecting all of that data, at a certain point when you have this giant pool of information of use cases, then you can start being predictive too, right? You can start getting better at your design, and you can start to predict ahead of time how people might react, and you just start to get better and better and better at being able to make good design decisions based on having that data. Right now, and for the past 25 years plus, we're just throwing darts at the board and just guessing at what we think users are going to do, and we try to get close to it. Now with access to all this data, we can now look at something and go, look, we had 1,000 people go through this course. Everybody skipped this video. Let's just take it out. That kind of thing.
Yep. That's exactly what we're thinking about during this process. Because and games, mainstream games, non-learning games have been doing that for a long time, especially in the past 5 years, of just long-term observation of the user and really getting in close to what it is they want and what it is they need, so they can make adjustments based upon that. With everything being iterative and a lot of games being basically iterative, non-final processes where they make changes continually, I can see e-learning going that way direction as well, which is pretty cool. So if you give me just a moment here, I'm going to bring this up. One of the disadvantages of using a lot of animation storyline is that it tends to bog things down a bit as you continue to add. So if you'll just give me a moment, I'll bring up the project here.
Yeah, and I'll give some context around it while you're doing that.
Sure.
So I love one of my favorite things about xAPI is the level 1 survey aspect. I know we're all like, oh, smile sheets, but I love like the ability to add in level 1 feedback anywhere, anytime, and like it becomes less of a, oh, we're gonna attach a survey or we're gonna send out a survey afterwards, or it allows it to kind of be camouflaged, if you will, into your course or something you're developing. So Ross made like hit the little emoji things that he made. You'll see them. Like it's really like it makes it fun. It's like, oh, I didn't even know I was giving feedback. Like it's kind of like that, but I think it may also be dangerous in that we're going to collect data on it, and so it's maybe so much fun that people might want to click on all the buttons. So maybe it's a little too fun, but I love it because I love it because you can also, like, if someone answers maybe negatively, you could have like a pop-up come up that's like lets you add additional feedback if you wanted. It's just really nice, and I think who does a really good job of it? I think Khan Academy does a really great job of feedback. Like if you play a video at the end, there'll just be a little tiny banner that goes across was like, was this helpful? Yes or no? Like thumb up, thumb down, and like it's just nice and integrated. It's like native level 1.
Yeah, right. And you're right. We give level 1 such a bad rap, but since it's so easy to get, there's a lot of value that can be gleaned out of a level 1, survey, if you will, or just a question, and just understanding how people are feeling, or at the very least understanding how they would vote about their feeling. Whether we can say that that's legit or not is a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I mean, I do. I think the tech has changed that idea of the level 1 pretty significantly.
Yeah, and I also like, my biggest thing with all data isn't there to tell you, it's not there to give you the answer, it's there to help you to go get the answer. So it's about getting, like, if I have 500 people that have taken the course and 499 give me positive feedback, like I want to know why. So I'm going to go investigate and like do like some group research. Like I'm not going to get any of this xAPI data and make assumptions. Like I'm just not. Yeah. Like it's there to help me be tipped off to go investigate further.
Yep.
Yay, Ross got it.
Yeah. All right. So this is in Storyline what we've set up here. Just kind of click through. In the preview area, JavaScript is not available, but so the selection screen, you can choose your character. I'm going to choose the man bun guy.
This was hard to do.
Yeah, we have several choices here. This was Mel's creation. And I'm just really impressed with, I really enjoy the characters. I think it's cool that you can choose which one to identify yourself. Put them in here. We'll see if this goes through. Without the JavaScript, it might not. There we go. Okay. So this is where to view the video. It's probably about 2-minute video, minute 30 seconds, very short, brief, with some information about Scrum tied into a plot line. In this case, we're going to skip it. So we have the questions here. These will be rigged up when that time comes, but I wanted the feel. One of the earliest animations I did was of how the buttons would appear, and sort of imitating HQ Trivia and having that feel of like something physical happening. I just really like that feel of what it looks like when something kind of like bounces around or stuff like that, as you'll see momentarily. So let's see. I'm gonna go to.
Your character stays with you in the upper right-hand corner the whole time. On them, like you'll see data about how you're ranking and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, which is not rigged up in this version because it's not exported, but this is the leaderboard screen. So and within the xAPI, the user will be identified by their score. So we're going to try to differentiate their scores as much as possible based upon the lightning round game mechanic that we talked about earlier, which randomizes the, you get a bonus amount, which is a random number. I'll bring you over here.
Yeah, so we've still got a lot to do on the development of this. We're kind of like in the in the development stage still.
Yeah, so here's the leaderboard here.
Yeah.
Right now it's all
I was going to say that. You can, so right now how the leaderboard's set up is you can only see that one character, and on the right hand side is the name. Oh, you got it going.
Oh yeah, I'll bring up the leaderboard here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so on the right hand side is the name and a variable. You just can't see it. So what we'll be doing for this is we'll be pulling in the score from the learning records store, and then whatever the score is, it will pull in the person's username, and it will also pull in their avatar that they chose. So we're also sending a statement based on the avatar that they chose. So then that will be cached. So we'll be able to dynamically like update the leaderboard.
It's very cool. You know what's going to be really fun is when you guys are done with this project and have it all polished up and ready to go, we can have you guys come back on, and we'll do like maybe do a lessons learned, and we can go through it, and you guys can we can sort of just extend this, right? It's fun to hear you guys talk about it in while it's mid process, but then to come back and see it when it's all done, and to have that conversation, I think will be fun.
Yeah. Ross, do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
So excited about the emoji.
Over the weekend, I was like, I want them to behave like physical bubbles. I don't want them to interfere with UI objects. I want them to appear, and as you can see, they move around the UI a little bit. This is just the kind of thing that I dream about. For example, last night I was like, okay, closing the laptop, everything's done. Not going to think about this project. I'm going to sleep. But as I was trying to go to sleep, I was like, well, what is it going to look like when they get the answer right, or when they get 3 answers right? What is going to appear on the screen? Well, like, what if a spaceship goes across the screen, and then that's the reward for getting something right? Like, that's just the kind of thing that I dream about, that kind of UI satisfaction feeling that you get from. It's just a fun aspect of something that feels good when you get it. So that reward for getting it right. So yeah, these feedback, I had a lot of fun rigging these up. Each is individually animated.
That level of attention to detail is really cool. And it does, I think some people would think that maybe it's distracting or maybe it's not necessary. But you're right. I think from an engagement perspective, it does, to see that it does that, I think is really cool. I mean, it's, it's why people stare at fish in a fish tank. We watch the bubbles, right? Yeah,
I'm open to, let's say down the line, if somebody has a feedback where it's distracting, or like, actually, I don't want to click that, or just there's something we need to change. I think that the important part of using xAPI is being open to change and being open to iteration.
People might click all the buttons just to see how the bubbles react.
And they're like, God, Ross, I just don't like these. But, it's a personal touch there, just to make it fun.
Yeah. But I think great. I just realized again, I'm so used to doing these TLD casts and waiting till the top of the hour, and I all of a sudden feel like I have 10 minutes left, but I really don't, because we're trying to end these a little bit early, since we're going like 4 hours straight, so that everybody can have a little break. Is there any sort of final wrap up or anything you guys want to mention before we go?
Well, we're going to have, when is the next API cohort? Next Thursday, the meeting, I think. So one of these cohorts coming up will be sharing our updated progress then. So if you're part of the cohort, I encourage you to come and check it out. Just be providing more information about as we start to integrate more xAPI and JavaScript into Storyline and start that next process. So I really encourage you to check that out. I'm really excited about the next steps for this project and just getting it to that next level where it's a full interactable piece where we can then share it out and have like try it out and tell us what they think about it and what their feedback is.
Yeah, and I would say for like my final piece about the project, we really wanted to focus on the instructional design piece of it, but we also wanted to just make this a really delightful experience that doesn't feel like learning, that feels like, and we wanted to kind of create like our own world and culture around this thing. So like you can imagine like if it met your like company's brand or something like that, it would make you feel like more connected and more. We wanted to make like almost an emotional connection to the whole thing, and this whole thing that's like an entire world of like learning and doing things in. So that was just as important to us as the instructional design side of things.
Yeah, to me that is the design, is thinking about xAPI and the increased focus on the user's experience and tracking that and not just like, as you were saying earlier, not just tracking that for some grand corporate vision, but for like to loop it back into the design process. To me, that is a full vision. It's not just the data, it's the whole package and how that all functions together. So this project has been a really great way to experiment with that and find out more about how that could work.
Yeah, very cool. And like we've said before, this is very much like meta learning, right? I mean, it's learning about learning while you're designing and developing learning, and now you're sharing your learning with us, and so there's just learning all over the place.
So many things to learn, and I learned a lot in the project about After Effects, but I'll save that for another day.
Oh, yes. Excellent! Hey, we'll do an After Effects session, and you can share with us there. I know a lot of people use it, so it's good.
Yeah, it's a struggle.
Yeah, and Ross, it was great to meet you, and we're going to have you on as a guest.
Absolutely.
In general, so everybody in the community can get to know you better.
I'd like that as well, definitely. I'm looking forward to that.
All right, cool. We'll definitely make that happen. All right, you guys, I'm going to close this out and say goodbye, and definitely stick around in the chat if you have time. I know you guys are super busy over there, but it'll be fun anyway. So good to see you guys. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
All right, there we go. There's another one. I forgot to play our music at the end of the last one, so I'll just do it this time. Yeah, everybody take 5 minutes, and we'll be back at the top of the hour.